Started a staffing firm in 1987, sold it in 1999, bought it back again in 2003, sold it again in 2011, left the entity in 2019, and then bought a marketing company in 2020. There, that's my career.
If you're in the staffing business, just do these 5-8 things and it'll go.
Do you have the right people reporting to the right places? How are we communicating and who are we communicating with? And are we communicating effectively? If you were good at sales and you could explain the concept and then be able to provide the value or prove the value of your firm, you were in.
Yes, I'm using an AI tool for my research, for preparation, for formatting, saving me time. But me as a human being, me as an expert in that industry, I'm validating that data.
ChatGPT can't think the way I can think. It doesn't know what I know about staffing. It just doesn't.
We know the industry, staffing's in our blood. This is what we do, and everything we're building is for you to either make more money or save money. Welcome to another episode of Humans of Staffing. My name is Sammy Singh, along with my co-host TJ Sammy. And today we have a really esteemed guest. The reason I call that is because Jay Mattern is the CEO of TerraFirma Marketing. Not only is he a friend, so I'm very biased in this particular podcast. So he's a good friend. He's a friend not only of the industry, he's someone who's been in the industry for over 32 years. And it's a pleasure for us to have Jay here. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, thank you, Sammy and TJ, for having me. I've never been called esteemed. Probably never will again, but thank you. I like the way that sounded. I'm esteemed now. I love it. It's great.
Jay, as they say, take the compliments while they're coming, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I've never heard that.
Jay, on a serious note, I have to get this, and I've said this to everybody, even if because it is a validable. I validate this compliment to you. You are one of the few people, at least in my professional career, who always gave and never expected anything in return. Simple examples like, hey, Jay, I need this. You will go out of your way, make the introduction, never, ever ping me back to say, what do I get in return? So I think starting with that, where does that come from, Jay?
That's a really good question. I get yelled at all the time by my colleagues here because I give shit away, and they're just like, why are you doing this? And it's kind of I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't call it a flaw, but it's just something that I've always felt that, it's what's the old saying? If you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And there really is a lot of truth to that. And so that's really I think where that comes from is just, I'm not looking to get a payback. If something comes around, that's great. But I just want to be able to, if someone needs some help and they're sincere about it and I know that they're going to take the advice and run with it, then I'm more than happy to probably give them more than they need. But, it's just built in. It just comes with the territory. I don't know any other way.
And that to me has been, it's such a strong, it is, I can't tell you enough. And that's why your and my friendship began, because I just pinged you on something completely different. And you gave me everything possible that I could need and with nothing in return. So it was I had a checklist in my head that I owe Jay. And whenever he's going to need something, I'm going to always be there for him. And that is great. But just kind of stepping out of that, you're very active in ASA. You are, I think, I think I've never seen anybody really put that much effort into answering questions, which is on the same streak that you're doing there, which is helping as many people as you can, giving them real advice. But let's step back 35 years or so. What industry or what were you doing before you joined the staffing industry and the business? Yeah. Kind of give us a little bit of a gist of that journey.
Okay. So I graduated from Indiana University. I'm proud to be an IU grad. So from there, I went immediately into consumer finance. And that was just by accident. I just fell into it because I was looking for a job and, hey, that sounded good. So when I say consumer finance, this is the industry that makes loans to higher risk individuals with a much higher interest rate. And so that was a real experience because you start at the bottom. And so first of all, you have to learn how to collect loans from people that don't want to pay. So that was good training, and but it ultimately led me into a branch manager role with that in that industry, where I was introduced to P&L. So I learned how to read a P&L and manage for profitability, and all those kinds of things. But I was at a place in my career where I could make a change and kind of felt a little restless, and I had two other partners that were at the same place in their careers. They were kind of restless and thinking about doing something different. And so the three of us said, well, let's see if we can't find something to do. And we looked at a number of businesses. We almost bought a business that it was called Heartland. They make those wooden sheds that you put your lawn tractor in, that kind of something like that. And that didn't work out. And then we found a little recruiting company in Elkhart, Indiana that was for sale. And we thought, well, we all had, in our current careers, had dealt with recruiters, headhunters. So we had some knowledge of that. And we thought, well, we know just enough to be dangerous. Let's see how this works out. So we made the acquisition of this little company in Elkhart, Indiana. I always say that we bought a company and a house came with it. The actual office was in a house. It wasn't a building. It wasn't an office, commercial building. It was a house. It's still there, 420 South 4th Street, Elkhart. If you ever happen to be in Elkhart, go by 420 South 4th Street and you'll see the house that people started in. So we all pitched in and made that happen. And then we heard about this temporary help thing that was, all the buzz, and people were talking about it, and we didn't really know anything about it. We thought, well, that sounds like it could be an interesting kind of a secondary source of revenue. We still thought we were in the headhunting business, and we, slapped that piece on and we looked at franchises, and, there were a bunch of franchises at the time. There really aren't now. There were a bunch then. We looked at all of them, and they brought us all their materials, and we got done talking to all of the franchisors, we realized we've got all the forms and documents and things to do this ourselves. It can't be that hard, can it? And so that was the beginning.
What year are we talking about?
This was 1987.
87. Wow.
Yeah. No computers, no phones, no fax machines, no nothing. There was no electronics. We did everything with 3-ring binders and 3-hole punch. That's how we did it.
Gosh. And at cabinets. That point in time, temporary staffing hadn't evolved to what it is today.
Oh, absolutely.
Was there a stigma at that time of people saying, I don't want to work as a temporary worker. I'd rather have a full-time job? Because at that time, it wasn't even called full-time. It was called permanent.
Yeah. Well, really, back then there were 2 sales that you had to make. We don't have to do this anymore, but you first had to sell the concept because companies really didn't know what it was. It was still that unfamiliar to most companies. And so you would have to explain what is this and why should you consider it? And so we'd have to lay all of that out first, both from an efficiency standpoint as well as a cost saving. We could show that the costs ultimately were much better if you didn't hire these people. Once we made that concept sale, then you could sell yourself over Manpower or Kelly and the few that were there at the time. But you had to sell the concept first.
And at what point did you start, did it gain traction? Meaning you started 87, you're probably sitting, was it within a few years you were profitable already? Or at that point in time, what were the challenges that existed, and what was also the good part at that time? Because a lot of people were not knowledgeable. For example, I sold in the 80s, right? I sold in 95 onwards, maybe till 98, 99. You could give a bill rate and get away with it. Nobody knew about markups as much, and then they got smarter with it. What was the concept at that point? What were the core concepts, right?
Well, yeah. First of all, we were at that time. You could get a 70% markup on industrial. I mean,
oh gosh,
yeah, you can't do that now, can you?
No.
But I think the real challenge was for being able to grow. And yes, back to your initial part of the question, we were profitable in a relatively short period of time. I think it wasn't even 3 years. But the biggest challenge was at that point, the market wasn't as saturated with as many. I mean, there's 25, 30,000 staffing firms. Well, there weren't that many then. Let me tell you, there was a handful. And so you didn't have the challenge of, so much competition. from other staffing firms, the competing issue or the challenging issue was, do we have enough capital to be able to grow organically? Because as we know, if I get a new company, get a new client, I'm going to have to pay probably 8 to 12 payrolls before I get paid. And so that's the real issue. So then you get a second client. Now you've got two of them we always used to say, well, we're kind of like a bank, really. We're a funding source for our clients. And we had the ability to have the capital to be able to keep up with that, with growth. And the industry at that time was growing 25-30% a year. I mean, because again, there just weren't a lot of folks doing it. It was purely sales. If you were good at sales and you could explain the concept and then be able to provide the value or prove the value of your firm, you were in.
Yeah. So it was a lot of, and when did technology starts plugging into the equation? When did you first look at something and go, oh, this is great technology. We may, look back and laugh at it today. But what was at that time you came back to the office and you guys were like, shit, this is the AI of today. We're going to kill it now.
Yeah. Well, at first we were using, we did have, early on, I think the company was called Olivetti, and they had what were called word processors, these great big black boxes with the big screen on top, and kind of like the forerunners of what those big old computers and with the monitors you'd sit on top used to look like. So we had those, and we were using those at least for, to create Word document. Well, it wasn't Word, but to be able to create documents at the time. The first ATS platform that I recall, I think that we got on, it was called Star Searcher. I think it was Dataforce was the name of the company. So there was one out there, that was it. And, the minute we found out about that, it's like, okay, we're going to adopt this. And I think that was early 90s, Star Searcher and Dataforce. So as soon as we could get on that thing, and it was compared to, the things that what we have today, it was awful, but it was better than trying to keep, Post-it notes and pieces of paper and writing manual checks. It was much better than that.
Now, Jay, how many of you were there? You said 3 partners when you first started
Yeah.
How did you decide who's going to do what in terms of responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. At first, it was everybody sells. That was it. There wasn't anything else. You go sell something. You go that way, I'll go this way, and we'll meet at the end of the day and see who did the best. So that was how things shook out at first. But the other 2 partners, it was my father-in-law and my brother-in-law. So my father-in-law was coming off of a role with a major agribusiness company. He was an executive with them. So not before long, he ended up being the chairman and the CEO and the president and he took those titles. And then my brother-in-law and I sort of split up, there was operations and sales. So we kind of just split that line right down the middle. And, I had a lot of responsibility for the operational side, the recruiting side of the business. And he was the kind of the external face. And that's how we sort of separated things out once we got a good head of steam.
So here you've got experience in family dynamics too.
Oh yeah, that was fun. My wife was eventually my wife was in the business. My son was in the business. My daughter was in the business. Yeah, it was very interesting.
It's got its own set of not only challenges, but also benefits, right? It's got the both sides of the coin. And do you feel that so you were 87, now you're sitting at maybe 95. When did you, when you reach a business, when you've said, God, do we have traction? What was that number? Was it like, hey, we reached 10,000 hours a week? We reach X amount of billing. When did you kind of, where you sit back and go, we do it the same way. We put our head down. Mm-hmm. We're running as fast as we can. And then one day you kind of look up and go, oh, scrap, we just built something great. And when did that kind of occur?
That's exactly how it happened. We weren't paying that close. I mean, you just keep moving, right? Keep moving forward. I think it was, each time we'd hit like say 25 million, it's like, damn, that's a huge number. Then 50 million. Wow, that's a really huge number. Then you get to 100 million, and that's that 1% now. We know that there's only 1% of all staffing firms, get beyond 100 million. But it was kind of every so often you hit one of those markers that really had some significance, 25, 50, 100, 200, 250. Each one of those. But also what came along with that at the same time was, there's two types of growth, right? There's organic, just sort of, that organic growth that you get by continuing to do what works. And then there's scale, where you have to sort of jump over a canyon and sort of start over again, right? The normal organic growth, at some point, it stops. It flattens out. It just does, because of the size of your organization. And so with each one of those upsides, 50 million, we also hit a wall and said, well, wait a minute, something's not working. And it took a while to figure out, well, what is it? First of all, you have to recognize when you're there. So it's not just poor performance, it's something about the structure of your entity, the system that you're using, the process that you're using. And you have to be able to recognize that when you hit one of those numbers, and be able to step back and say, all right, we got to snap something off. We got to break something here in order to jump over that canyon and get to the other side.
So those were and where were you at the point when you guys ended up selling? How did that decision come about?
Well, which time? I actually sold it and bought it back once. Here's the short. Well, people always ask me about my career. So let me give you this little thing, because it only takes about 30 seconds. So started a staffing firm in 1987, sold it in 1999, bought it back again in 2003, sold it again in 2011, and then left the entity in 2019, and then bought a marketing company in 2020. That's my career.
What made it to where you sold it the first time? What was the reasoning to have to buy it back again?
Well, the first time in 1999, we brought in some private equity guys, and so that. My first thing to everybody who's listening to this is be very careful about that before you decide to do that, because they want to take control and they want to do things their way, even though you don't want that. You want to do it your way because you're the reason for the success. So the first time around we brought in, it was actually William E. Simon. William E. Simon was at one point the secretary, the treasurer, the secretary under Gerald Ford. He was so he was a very prominent guy. And then he had his sons in the business as well. And somehow we ended up connecting with them, and they wanted to invest in the staffing business. And we had a good head of steam. We were over 100 million at that point. And so they came in, and, the plan with these guys was, well, we're going to give you a whole bunch of money. You buy a bunch of companies, and then you're going to go public, and everybody's going to be rich. That was the plan, basically. But the one thing we didn't factor in, and this was, again, 1999, it was getting to that point where, we had Y2K was on the horizon, and in those late 90s, if you'll recall, this was when all of the, websites and digital really started to take hold, and all of these digital websites and everything online, they were losing tons of money, but it didn't matter. It was about how many eyeballs, how many people are looking at you. And that was how they were valued. And all of a sudden, all the institutional investors, kind of just ran over there and started throwing all their money within all of these digital websites and online tools and all that stuff. So what that ended up doing was, our strike price was, I think it was 75, something like that was going to be the IPO strike price. But as all of this started happening and we went back and repriced it, it was going to be something like 25 or 30. I mean, it was nothing. And so we immediately had a difference of opinion between the private equity guys and the three of us, because we said, we're leaving a whole bunch of money on the table. Let's just wait. Let's postpone this. And they didn't care. They were still going to get some money, just not as much as what they had thought. And they didn't want to own a staffing firm. They wanted to get out. So we wrote a number on the back of an envelope and said, here, why don't you write a check for this and we'll just go away. You can do whatever you want. And they did. So that was the sale in 1999. And then 2003 comes around. We happen to find out that our company was a prepackaged asset sale through the bankruptcy court. So with all of these roll-ups, remember the roll-ups? We did a bunch of roll-ups, big companies, couple big ones. I won't name them, but that people can look it up and you can figure out who they were. But the prepackaged sale was supposed to pull all those people apart so they could go back their own separate ways. Well, we found out about that and said, well, we got to go play in that game. We got to go for that auction and see if we can buy this crazy thing back. And we did. It was 107% of the receivables. That's what we paid to buy our company back. That was
Wow.
2003.
So do you feel as to what you got paid and what you bought it? I don't want to know the specifics. Did you make out on that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good money.
Yeah.
Okay, you were
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Made out better the second time, though.
Okay. So you bought it back. Obviously, they couldn't run the show.
No.
They couldn't run it. Didn't know what right, and basically lost all of it because,
Yeah.
again, greed and not knowing. That's why I think founder-led companies are the only way that they survive to a certain amount of time, or a team that existed and then slowly the founders left.
Right. Not
There's no other way
investors.
to run
Not
it.
investors. Not investors trying to run a company. No.
Yep, that doesn't pan out. Yes,
No.
yes, that's just the way it is.
Well,
So-
you should know something about that, right?
we all have sold, walked on it, but the fact is, yes, there will always be a gap. But I think a company can do a good job of having a strategic group of people together. That even if the co-founders or the executives start moving out, they should be able to manage it themselves, versus just one or two or three people that know
Yeah.
everything. They never trained
And-
anyone.
And that's, Sammy, that's a really good point. That's another one of those inflection points that keeps staffing firms from getting any large, from being able to grow beyond that one or two or three people. That's so critical to be able to say, you know what, we got to hand stuff off to other people. We have to hire other people to do some of these things and show them how to do it and get the heck out of their way.
And I think that's a very difficult decision, Jay, because you've been doing it personally as a co-founder for so long, and that was one of the success with Google actually, because they were smart enough to say we're growing and let's go bring leadership that's seen a $200 million, $500 million growth, right? And they brought Eric Schmitz into the equation. But that's a tough one, right? I mean, we go through this ourselves, right? But that is a realization that I think, at least on my personal level, I think that is important. You've got to be able to make up your mind that says, you know what? I think we're at a point we need to bring in leadership that's seen the $200 million growth, the $500 million growth, and all the ops that go with it, right? With all the scalability issues that you're going to face, the growth challenges you're going to face. So, and we see that across the board with these staffing agencies as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to make that decision. A lot of staffing firms realize, hey, we need to do this. But the second part, the really more important part, is not only bringing those people in, but then staying out of their way. Entrepreneurs like to run things, like to be in control. I want to know what's going on, and let me know what you're doing, and I want to be in the middle of this. And I'm sure there's a better way we can do this. Tell me how you're doing it. And you really have to recognize that you've just got to stop that, and that's hard. That's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to do. So there's maybe a vast majority of staffing firms that realize for that next level of growth that they have to do that, and they bring someone in, but then they keep pulling up the flowers to see if the roots are growing. You got to let go. You've got to be able to let these people go and do what you've hired them to do.
Makes sense. And on that case, Jay, how was it different the second time? So, you ran organically a firm, grew it to, a few hundred million. That is one of the largest firms there. Successfully exited, bought it back again. What did you do differently for that next stint that you had?
Nothing. We did all this. I did everything that worked before. I knew what needed to be done. The problem is it wasn't being done in that 4 years that I wasn't there. And so
could you give some of the fundamentals? Give us like 3 pointers, 5 pointers. What is it in a staffing agency that if you had to give someone saying, if you're in the staffing business, just do these 5-8 things and it'll go. And I'll even go through our principles, for example, what we follow, even though we're a tech company.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's 6 that I don't know if I can get them all out here, but so it starts with what's the structure of your entity. And when I say structure, I mean, what are the reporting relationships? Do you have the structure, the reporting, do you have the org chart right? Do you have the right people reporting to the right places? And so, you'll so often see, and especially now that I'm in marketing, I see a sales director heading up the marketing. And no, that's not right. You got to have a marketing person that has responsibility for the marketing function. But so first of all, it's looking at the structure, the hierarchy, is that in the right place? Because again, you will outgrow that over time. That will get broken and you'll have to look at that. Then you've got to look at, so once you've got the boxes right on the org chart, then you look at each box and you say, do we have the right people in that box? Do we have the right person in each one of these boxes? Because the other thing that you'll often find, and it's happened time and time again, several times that for me personally, is I've got a person who's been with me a long time. They were a huge contributor. They were very successful to the growth of the organization, but the organization has outgrown them. They're no longer able to contribute. What we're doing now is not what we were doing then. And that person has skills and abilities to do that, but not to go where we are here. So you have to look at the boxes and say, do I have those people right? And I don't automatically just get rid of them, but I'm going to look at that. What are their skills and abilities? And can I rededicate them in another role that complements where they can still make a contribution? Not always can you do that. I mean, sometimes I had people in operational roles. In a couple cases, somebody that was really strong in operations, I ended up putting them in charge of our training department because they knew how to do that, but the company had outgrown them, but they could make a contribution in training other people on how to do what it is that they used to do. So I think it's looking at the boxes. I think you have to look at that. Then I think the next thing you have to look at is our communication style and our communication process. I'm talking internally. How are we communicating and who are we communicating with? And are we communicating effectively? And there's not a single company, including mine now and the ones I had before, PeopleLink and anything else, that does it 100%. There are always communication breakdowns. You know that, right? I mean, I say X and you thought I said Y, even though I thought I was very clear about it. So that we have to look at the communication style and structure and how are we communicating? Who are we communicating? Do they understand the why, not just what I want them to do, but why that's important? Because often if they can understand why, they can really buy into what. So how are we communicating? Accountability then next. What is our process for holding people accountable to the roles and expectations that we've placed them in? And so we've got to make sure that we have, and that changes over time. It's the expectations, the accountabilities we had at 50 million are going to be different at 300 million. We've got to be able to look at that. So these things you have to look at over a period of time and make the adjustments that need to be made in order to be able to, as I said, to jump over that canyon and get to the next level.
Got it. And what about some fiscal disciplines?
Oh yeah. From day one, we had good financial statements. This wasn't being written down on the back of an envelope somewhere. We had accounting processes from day one because that's so important that you're keeping track. That's your scorecard. How are we doing? Are we winning? Are we losing? Is it a tie? How well are we performing? And so the fiscal discipline, and that always, grew as well as the company grew. So we started out with somebody that was, had some accounting background, and at some point you end up with a controller. Then at some point you have a CFO. I mean, you have to mature that role as your organization matures as well. But that one is very, very important.
And did you ever rely mainly on, because the two challenges always in staffing is workers' comp and financing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you always stay within the traditional zones where you stayed with your own workers' comp and your own financing? Or versus...
Good question. Early on, we were in a captive, and that was very helpful at the time. The good news is the captive is, if it's the right players, everybody does really well. If you've got one person that isn't a good player, everybody else has to pay for that. You know how that works. But early on, it was a very good way for us to be able to get coverages that we needed and to get access to all the resources. But eventually, you want to we never quite got to full self-funding, but you want to be able to break that off and have your own coverage and be able to manage your workers' comp yourself. And actually, that was another key area that I always looked at and said, there's great upside here. I had a team of 6 risk prevention managers. We broke our territories up, by those 6 people, but they were responsible for it. If someone was injured today, they started managing the claim today. And I always used to say those people were as good, if not better, than any of the claims people with our TPA. They knew the states that they were responsible for. They knew how to manage the claim to a successful conclusion, and how to prevent, lingering, and how to be able to get the person back to, MMA as quickly as, their maximum, it's MMA, right? Yeah. To get them back to their maximum,
whatever the work capacity, I think. Yeah.
To be able to get back to their work as quickly as possible. But at the same time, to not allow it to either linger, or to be able to, allow them to be able to continue to just, drain your resources from your workers' comp coverage. So it was really important to be able to manage those claims. And again, that was another fiscal discipline that was really equally important.
No, I was just wondering. I mean, just looking at the time as well. So here you are. You said you exited 2009, was it, or 13?
No, I left as the CEO in December of 2019.
2019. Got it. Got it. Mm-hmm. And then 2020 was the marketing for firm.
Yeah. So I thought I was retiring. This is a fun story. Yeah. So I thought I was retiring. And I actually did for the month of January. And then at the end of January, the principal of the marketing company that had been working with me at PeopleLink called me and said, well, look, I know you just retired. You think you're retired, but I'm getting ready to retire as well. I'd like to sell my business to you, and I think you should buy it. Oh, okay. Well, let me think about that. I really didn't. At first, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm retired. I'm not supposed to work. But then I started, and actually the company was called Villing and Company, was the initial company that I acquired, a very, very prominent marketing agency in Northwestern Indiana, which is why I was working with them through PeopleLink. And so I thought, well, they've got a really great marketing team. They do there's a full service. They do everything in-house. There's nothing that gets farmed out. They build websites and write content and manage social media platforms. They do all these great things. What if I rebranded this and went back out to the staffing world and knocked on the door of all my staffing friends and said, hey, Haley can't do this for everybody. You need an alternative, and I'm your alternative. And guess what? I've done this for over 30 years, so I kind of know how this works. And that was the sort of the impetus that said, all right, I'm going to do this. So March 1st of 2020, I actually closed on the marketing firm. And then, of course, 2 weeks later, we're all working from home, and we all had COVID. So my timing wasn't real good, but it all worked out.
It does. And since then, you've been there. Now, I think some of the ways that we're going to now decipher this a little better is marketing is one of the biggest affected areas by AI, right? Mm-hmm. How is that affecting your current state of the business? Where do you think it's going? And then we'll kind of dig deeper. TJ's expertise is on that side of it. So
yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I keep telling my staffing prospects, clients, friends, everyone else is, look, I don't have anything against AI. I think there are great. It can be used very efficiently, very effectively in certain circumstances, but I think you need to be deliberate. You need to be strategic about what you're going to do with it. Because what I see a lot of staffing firms doing, most staffing firms, they're looking down the street and they see their competitors got AI, and so we've got to have it too. And so they've got an AI bot or whatever, or somebody that's doing some screening for them or whatever it is that they're doing. But they don't really they've just done it because everybody else is doing it. And so they end up with this great tool. It's like, well, we really don't know how to optimize this, but we've got it. So I think, that's the first thing. I think staffing companies, like everything else, just if you're going to do something, you're going to adopt some new technology. There's nothing wrong with that, but just know what you want to do. What was it? Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. One of those 7 habits that I subscribe to every day is begin with the end in mind. So figure out where you want to end up and then work backwards from there. Same thing with AI. So if I'm going to adopt AI, what is the outcome? What's the objective I want to accomplish with whatever I'm going to do with an AI tool, and then work backwards from there. Now, as far as in marketing, I've told my team here, I said, we have to be very careful about this because, our clients come to us and pay us to provide them with original content. And so we're not using AI to write our blogs, to write any of our social media. We do use AI to outline a blog. I said, that's okay, but we have to write the content ourselves. It's original content that we're writing because it's unique to each client. That's the other thing is, we're writing content that's different for each staffing firm. We're not repurposing anything. So from our perspective, AI is, it's a friend and it's a foe all at the same time. We just have to recognize how we can use it, to be able to help us because, if I just let AI write my blogs for my clients, well, at some point they're going to say, you know what, I can do that myself. I don't need you. You're fired.
And Jay, you're absolutely right. I think where we're at today with AI, at least my opinion is, so if I were to outsource my marketing to a marketing agency, in my mind, my expectations are twofold. If you're not using AI, if your staff is not using AI at all, then I'm thinking you guys are not efficient, you guys are not innovative. Why am I paying you for manual work? You should be using AI, right? So that's the one component. The second is if 100% of the output is from an AI tool, then I'm also thinking, wait a minute, I can do this myself. I'll have somebody on my staff do it. Why do I need you? Right?
Yeah.
And so where the dangerous part today that I see across the board, we keep receiving, as co-founders as well, this analyst reports and research. And all it is someone went into ChatGPT and cranked out a research analyst report. And it's the combination today has to be where, yes, I'm using an AI tool for my research, for preparation, for formatting, saving me time. But me as a human being, me as an expert in that industry, I'm validating that data. I'm validating what the recommendations are, and then I'm modifying it to what I'm experiencing as an expert in that field, and then modifying it and giving it to me. So this day and age, it's kind of dangerous on one side if you're not using it. If on the other side, that's the only thing you're using and you're not validating it. So I think the answer, at least in our opinion, is that middle ground. I used AI, did my research, saved myself, a significant amount of time. But because I've been in the industry 25, 30, 40 years, whatever, I am now going to validate that this is what it is before I present it to whether it's my group of investors, whether it's my customer, whether it's my team members. I think that is so critical these days, and that's missing. We see a lot of it now, just cranking out.
Yeah, and you're proving my point. You're saying the same thing in a different way, but I think what you're saying is, look, we have a very deliberate way that we're going to employ or deploy AI. This is how we're going to use it, rather than, hey, we got to have AI because everybody else has got it. We'll figure out what we're going to do with it later. And as far as AI, AI is not a threat to marketers. I don't see that at all, because marketing is much more than just content, right? Marketing is it's a very comprehensive. I came up with a word. I call it marketing requires multidimensionality. And so from that, I mean that it's a comprehensive approach. You're shooting a shotgun. You're not shooting a rifle. Because there's a lot of different audiences. There's a lot of different ways that they will respond to your content or your message or whatever you're doing. And so you have to make sure that you're in all of those places all at once. That's another thing I think that staffing people really miss the mark when it comes to marketing. They want to do one thing and say, well, that's going to work for us. We're just going to generate leads and that's going to be great. We're just going to do email marketing. Well, but what about your social media platform? What about your website? What about, going to, getting referral sources and all? There's so many things that come into play to have an effective marketing program. AI is just one small part of it.
And Jay, how did you go about now? I think one of the challenges is, quote unquote, to become AI first company, right? An AI first organization, because whether we like it or not, you've got to be able to train your team members. And the minute you start training folks in AI, at least what we're experiencing is your roles are also changing. Because what it took you X time, it's not taking you X. Now the goal is if TJ was able to do 2 tasks in a given day, I should be able to do 20 with AI. I can scale rather than replace. I mean, that's really the intent. Is how do I scale with that same level of quality and competency, right? So here you are as a firm, you brought in AI. How are you then making sure that each and every team member gets trained, understands it, and that how that impacts each role, and if there's a change in their roles?
Yeah, we have a meeting. Well, we have 2 meetings every week. Actually, 3 meetings. We have what we call our traffic meeting, which is, that we just look at our client projects and how move the ball forward on each one. What are we doing there? The second meeting we have is business development meeting, and that's our business development team. And that's where we really start to get in. We talk much more in that group about how are we using AI, because the account executives are also the project managers that manage the client projects and the client relationship. So these are the guys and gals that need to understand what is our position. I mean, we had to spend a lot of time, TJ, first talking amongst ourselves, like what is our position with regard to AI? Where are we as a firm and as a marketing company? How do we want to adopt it? And, what's our position with regard to AI? And then our third meeting is we have a leadership meeting. I've got a leadership team then that we sort of, this is where we talk about the organizational things that we're working on and growth and new avenues that we're pursuing and things like that. And that's the other group where we've had a lot of time fleshing out how are we using AI, but mostly in the business development meeting is where we look at actually what are we doing with AI? What are some of the things we can do with it? We've experimented with creating a strategic marketing plan by putting in all of the right inputs based on what this particular client's looking for. And we've gotten some pretty decent results, but my chat GPT can't think the way I can think. It doesn't know what I know about staffing. It just doesn't. I mean, I've had a lot of time, a lot of input to be able to figure out, where do you go next? What do you do? And so I just think we have to look at AI at least for us, we're using it at a kind of like I said, it's a great tool for us to sort of lay out an outline for a blog. This is the content. This is the topic we want to talk about, get the outline, and then fill it in with our knowledge and our expertise. So, we do spend a lot of time talking about it. We also look at our competitors and see what they're doing. And, there's a couple of direct competitors to us that are all in on AI. And our position is we're kind of more middle of the road, like what you're saying, TJ, where I think you have to be deliberate. You have to be careful about how you're using it. I mean, right now there's some litigation I'm aware of. There's going to be more litigation about using it as a screening tool. And is it discriminatory? And, now you've got candidates that have figured out how to, how to ghost the chat bots. And so you've got, fake candidates talking to fake recruiters, and this is all going to get sorted out. I think, once we get over the excitement of it, I think we'll be able to settle down and use it effectively.
Yep. And that's where I think even we are on our side. So just keeping track of time a little bit here. Jay, you've come through staffing really is a very tough business. So first question is, which association you were always, I think ASA is what you've stuck to all these years, and SIA, because that's where I usually end up meeting you. We always end up hanging out. Which other organizations that you've stayed across the board true to? And, why you would recommend those to others that might be listening there in the staffing business?
Well, yeah, for us, of course, it's a sales and marketing tool. I mean, we want to be visible at all of these with as many associations as we can, because those members, of course, are our prospects and clients. But yeah, you're right. It's the 2 keys for us are ASA and SIA. And I would have to say, really most of our client base, they are more ASA members than SIA members. So we sort of slant, we make a little more investment on the ASA side than we do SIA, but it's important to be involved in both of those. And then from there, we're involved in, we're probably 24 associations right now. If you go to my website, the bottom of the website, the footer, you'll see all the associations. I mean, it's just row after row of associations we're in. And many of them are the state affiliated ASA memberships, like in Ohio and Indiana and New Jersey and California, and all of those that have, affiliation with ASA. We're members of those. And there's some independent ones we're also part of, like TempNet and AS Group, affiliated staffing group. So, we've branched out from ASA and SIA just to, again, because for us, it's to be as visible as we can be. For staffing people, I think what's important is, pick one or two that are critical to you and join those groups, because this gives them an opportunity to be able to, in a safe way, to be able to talk to their peers and their colleagues and kind of find out what everybody's doing and be able to hear what, for instance, AI, that's what everybody's talking about. So staffing executives and staffing staff people can go to these and, learn about what's going on right now, what's going on with the industry and where are the trends and those kinds of things. So it's really important. Plus, we need to do whatever we can to further our industry, to support our industry. And that's another way to be able to collectively support, the staffing industry that we are so much a part of.
No, that's on the money, because we come from staffing, right? We have run it. Hence why the software and the mindset and A to Z, everything is built as what I would have wanted as a staffing agency. But if you've never run one or played any part of it, I still get boggled to my mind as to how they're building software solving anything whatsoever. If you've never checked in a temp in your life, you have no idea what the heck that temp has to do.
That's right. That's right.
If you have not gone to a client and have an on-site there while the client's yelling, wanting them to do certain things, there's timekeeping there. You've got 100 people lined up who need to be enrolled. There has to be a practical solution. If you've not been in the battle, you're never, what was it? Who's the famous, the man in the arena, right? Whatever was written by one of the presidents.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Right? If you have not been in the arena in that bullfight, you're never going to be there. And hence why I always pick on all of our competitors, because most of them have never seen a day or light of a staffing agency. Mm-hmm. How in the world are you going to give me a solution and solve? Half the time I'm going to be explaining to you why I need a certain feature set. And it's going to take me hours and hours explaining it to you. It's the why is you're never going to get. It is the what you want me to do. So that's why we've always pushed forward with, we know the industry, staffing's in our blood. This is what we do. And everything we're building is for you to either make more money or save money.
And that's where even our AI use cases, Jay, are very particular to the pain points that we feel a staffing agency experiences, right? I mean, like you very well mentioned, just because AI doesn't mean anything, right? It's just like, okay, what is the end game? Where do I need to use it? What is that use case that's most meaningful and valuable to me? And that's how we're approaching, the entire AI strategy within the product itself, is define those use cases that bring the most value and avoid situations, as you just mentioned, those decisions that AI is making on recruiting somebody and opening up you for potential litigation. The other area we're big on is that every team member we hire comes from staffing. Because part of it, what we realized is when we do the onboarding, when we do the support, when we do the training, the frustration of the customer is also that way. The person doing the training knows nothing about our business. Yeah. You just know, run a report and, you want a time card? Here you go. And so I think that's been on our kind of core philosophy from day one, is that everyone within our organization needs to come from staffing or played a role in a business aspect of staffing. So we're not sitting there, number one, training them, because we can train all we want, but if you've not played the part, you won't get it at the end of the day.
And that's why I'm sitting in this chair right now. Same thing you said, Sammy. I've been in that arena, and that was the whole reason why I saw the value in acquiring this marketing company, is to be able to take this back out and be able to provide Simple marketing solutions. That's really that's our mission is, we don't make it complicated. There's a very simple 4-step process we always follow with every client. And this is all things that I learned from sitting on the other side of the desk as the CEO, but these are things that I know will work. These are things that I know that in staffing will be effective. And, that's the whole reason I'm here is because I've spent my whole life, getting it wrong and learning how to do it right. And so now I want to be able to help my clients to be able to, if they want to grow, I want to help them grow.
Knowledge on many sides. So now really getting to the personal level a little bit, Jay, you're super fit. What's been your secret staying fit? That's one thing. What are you doing? Number 2 is I know you love music because I think I've seen you play a guitar. There was some gig you were doing at some point in time. Could you talk a little bit about your music interests, your personal, maybe your personal disciplines? That's good too, because all of us our health and our mental state needs to be upfront always. Of course, you're a jokester and you have a great sense of humor, but that also keeps a person alive really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. Those are good questions. So I was actually a music major. I told you I graduated from IU, but I actually started in my educational, training, if you will, at Ball State in Muncie, Indiana. And I had a full music scholarship. I was pursuing a music performance major, played trumpet, still play it. But, about halfway in, but 2 years, my second year, I was starting to realize that, hey, I'm kind of an adult now. And it dawned on me that I can't stay in college forever. At some point, hopefully I'm going to graduate, and then I have to get in the real world. How am I going to make money playing a trumpet? I couldn't ever figure that out. So that's when I said, I think I need to find something that, and that was, business sounds pretty simple. I'll get a marketing degree. So that was the direction I headed. I took a time out to get married. I met my wife at Muncie and Ball State and then, told you about my finance career, and then ended up getting my, going back to school at night and weekends and getting my degree at IU. But I was always into music. I've written music. I've scored music and did it for my high school band. I actually had a side gig where I had a guy that had a band that wanted to be able to trademark all of his, copyright all of his music, and so they would play a song, and this is back in the day, guys. Remember cassettes?
Yeah,
cassettes.
We do.
Yeah,
we came from buying cassettes and the single, the smaller singles.
I'm talking about
the 80s.
So they would play a song and they would record it on a cassette, and I had a cassette player, and then I would play it and listen to it. I would score that, write that music out, and then they could take it and get a copyrighted trademark so they could protect their music. And I also play bass guitar. I think that's where you saw I play electric bass. But so that's a great, I love that. It's, I've got a room where I can shut the door and my wife won't yell at me, and I just get my iPhone out and put it on the speaker and, start playing the songs. I mean, it's just a great way to relax and to unwind from a person or a physical perspective. So this was back when I was 40 years old. I'm not going to say when that was, but it's a long time ago. When I was 40 years old, I got on the scale one day and I was 200 pounds. I'm 5'8". I'm like, this is not right. This is just, I've had enough of it. It's kind of one of those things where people, get to a point where it's more painful to stay the way you are than it is to change. That hit me really hard. I'm like, I don't want to be like this anymore. So I changed my entire diet. I started working out. I had all workout equipment at home, lifting weights, dumbbell, barbell, the whole thing. And changed my entire diet, started intaking much more protein. I actually was eating six meals a day, every 3 hours, but limited calorie intake, and all very healthy food. And I actually went from 200 pounds to 155 pounds. And wow, so it really kind of what I did was just, scaled everything off, and then I rebuilt from there. So now I'm at 175. So I've, started to build muscle and mass back. And I'm looking at my gym. It's right across the courtyard in this building right over here. You can't see it, but it's right across the street from me. So I'm there 3 days a week. And again, working on weights, and I'm on a treadmill 20 minutes after each workout. I have 2 protein shakes each day, each 30 grams of protein, one in the morning, one at lunch. And then, a decent meal at night. And so that's just worked really well for me. I'm almost 70 years old, and I can keep up with most of the young pups.
Yes, you can.
Not all of them, some of them.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. So where does this from now outwards? You're obviously not going to retire anytime soon.
No,
you're fit, you're healthy, you're in great shape, you love what you're doing. What's the horizon like for you for the next few years? And I pinged you so many times to be part of the advisory group. That's been my constant every year. I come to your door and go, Jay, you want to do something interesting? I want to hang out with you all the time. So, so what's in your horizon?
Yeah, so I think that's, we're going to continue to grow this business. The second thing that's starting to happen now, and this was part of my plan, was I also wanted to be able to provide consulting services to the staffing firm, to the staffing agency, the staffing industry. And so it started out by me being asked by marketing clients, hey, could you come? I know you do marketing, but we need some help in sales, or we need some help with our something else, or our operational part of the business. And, you've done this a long time, and I've accepted a few of those, and that felt really good. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to actually start going after these. So I've started just sort of marketing that a little bit. I haven't said a whole lot about it, and I've got a couple engagements now that I'm involved in. So that's the second step. Is I want to be able to provide my expertise to those folks that are, struggling with something with regard to one of those things we talked about. Do you have the right people? Do you have the right structure? Or do you have the right communication tools? Do you have the right accountability? Do you have all of those things down? Let's see what those look like. So let me see if I can help you there to scale. And then the third thing is we're going to get back into staffing. I know I don't know if you're familiar with ClearEdge and Leslie Vickery, and you probably know them.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Yeah. Okay. So Leslie has she's also providing staffing and direct hire services now for
marketing
companies looking for marketing people. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do that too. So at some point I want to get back into staffing to be able to do that part of this as well. So we'll always have marketing as kind of our foundation, but I also want to provide consulting services and I'm going to be very selective about the clients that I work with. I have been so far. I will continue from a consulting perspective, and then being able at some point, we're going to be able to a place where we can start providing contingent and direct hire services to our staffing, or to marketing companies looking for marketing professionals.
So kind of staying within that realm.
Yeah.
Got it. Just one of the last questions is which area of the world are you seeing? Are you seeing agencies? Because I know you dealt with a firm that was out of France. Remember, we know them all. They came in, bought out here. Which part of the world is the demand coming in that you're seeing the most for the staffing industry?
Coming to the U.S., you mean?
Compared to the U.S., besides the U.S.
Oh.
Are you seeing clients trying to expand anywhere else? For the EOR world has exploded, suddenly out of the blue, EOR has become a thing. Payroll providers are getting into EOR. Everybody's kind of crossed the paths with each other and blended. Mm-hmm. Where is the demand now? One's geographic, and of what particular area is where the demand's going to go in the technology?
Good question. I still think the demand is coming to the U.S., not going from the U.S. I just see, they're just like what happened to my company. We were acquired by Group Creed, a French-based staffing firm, and they all want to be in the U.S. because the U.S. is the largest staffing market in the world. They all want to be here. Everybody wants to be here. Now, as far as the U.S., and there's been a lot of talk about this the last couple of years when things have been really soft. What staffing firms are talking about now is what else can we do? We need to start thinking about what are the sources of revenue? Where can we get just other secondary sources of revenue? Kind of like what I did with my firm way back in the day. And so they are looking at things like you said, can we provide payrolling services? Can we do that? Can we, like ProMan, there was some conversation, as you know, about them getting a VMS tool. Can we be an MSP or a VMS and have a tool and start to, manage larger client accounts like that and snap that off as a division? Or, what other things can we provide consulting services within HR or risk prevention? A lot of staffing firms like my company, we had a really, really deep and knowledgeable risk management and prevention department. And we often, lent those people out to go consult with clients on how to improve their safety procedures and to reduce injuries and things like that. So I think within the US, I think staffing firms are trying to see what other things can we do within the world that we're in. But I still think most of the demand, I think if you're talking about coming from one shore to the other, it seems to me it's still the guys overseas.
Got it. Coming backwards. Awesome. Jay, thank you so much. Is there anything that you feel that we didn't talk about?
I think we talked about a lot, haven't we? I'm tired.
It's a big thank you to you, Jay, for taking the time to come out here. I know we had to give it a couple of shots to get here, but you always have my gratitude for always coming through and helping out wherever necessary and always being a great friend to us and the industry.
Well, thank you for having me, both of you. And it's great to be able to have this conference. I love talking about this, just like you guys do. We can talk about this all day long. But at some point, you got to quit talking. You got to go sell something.
So I'm kind of feeling we've had an insane amount of growth. Last month was probably the best month we've ever had.
I've been watching you.
Because the world needed to see, as you know, our solution is all the way, and then the VMS plugs in. Suddenly, it just hit home because we're the best of breed. And again, if you put your head down and just concentrate on your customer and say, I'm here to help you solution this, the goal is for you to make more money or save money and actually grow. It's appreciated by everybody. It's a fundamental, principle of life. Just stick with it and keep hammering it away, and it always comes through.
Well, the thing I've seen you do, this is really a compliment, but you've sort of kind of gone this direction and then gone that direction, and you've sort of just really been trying to see where's the real demand for. There's a number of things that you've looked at, that you've tried to provide, and ultimately, as you said, your customer came to you and said, "This is what we need," and you realized you have that, and now you're funneling your resources, investing right in that channel where you can be successful. So I think that again, there's a lesson there to be learned that sometimes you have to poke around a little bit to find out where is our best practice. Where can we really be successful? Where can we really make a difference? And it's quite often, it's just like my company when we started, I thought we were going to be executive headhunters. That went away really quick, but you got to be willing to sort of see what is the marketplace asking for? Do I have the ability to be able to provide that and to provide it at a high level of quality and be able to charge, a reasonable amount for that to be able to make a profit. And then once you've dialed into that, then you go in all in. And I've seen you do that. And I think that's so impressive what you've been able to do.
We're trying our best, as they say, Jay. We just, we're all entrepreneurs. We're technologists. We understand this industry and we're running the lane and really doing right by our customers, right? That's the key. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That if they thrive, they do well, everybody together will thrive.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
It was definitely a pleasure, Jay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's a pleasure.
All right. See you guys.